morning, gamers! It is a beautiful sunny day. Everybody moving. It's time to get this party moving. I'm going live, but I am reclined. Sorry. No. Woo! So, what I don't understand is why this camera is so granular. So, with digital technology, I'm seeing. It's kind of bizarre, actually, with digital technology. There's no reason for any pixelation as far as I'm concerned when it comes to any media. I don't care if it's pictures, photographs, or if it's actually media, like a movie or whatever. I mean, if we can have cinematic options, and like for example, iPhone, I can't stand it when this happens, but let's just pretend that on my iPhone, that in order to save some sort of wackadoodle whatever space, suddenly the pixels are like reduced in number, so consequently the quality is much less, but it takes up less space. When in fact our technology is so powerful, and we have oh my gosh, it's cold in my house. My nose is cold. We have the technology to have cameras in space that can tell that I have a freckle or a red dot, which isn't really a freckle, but sarcastically a freckle on the tip of my nose. We have that level of focus and technology from the web. It's called webcam. I think it is the webcam telescope that was released in 2023. I think it was in 2023, or was it in 2022? It might have been in 2022. So anyways, yeah, and then yeah. There's just a faux tug of war, I think, that's going on when it comes to electronics. So, like from a consumption standpoint, like if you have so many photographs, and they're going to reduce the quality of your access or your whatever. So like Apple is just like, no, you need to buy more space, and you may not need to buy more space, but they may need to put the squeeze on you, so they're going to make you. So like if you have 100 pictures and photographs and they want you to subscribe, and subscriptions, like, listen, young people, subscriptions are an absolute trap. So it's entrapment. So what they're doing is they're requiring you to take $1, $10, or $100 a month in order to have space on their iCloud, right? And they're basically taking that money from you. And so I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't pay such things. If you don't have the budget, which many of you that are young and your dollars are not stretching because of inflation, you're like, for example, if your rent is $3,000, $2,000, or $1,000, and you don't have any roommates, and or you have roommates, but anyway, you're trying to stretch your dollars. Don't rack up subscriptions. Don't buy. And let me just tell you, even if you're a sports fan, ESPN's going to hate me, and so is the NFL, and so is the NBA, and so is all of the broadcasting things. But you are absolutely absolute fool. If you're gonna pay, $100 for ESPN or, the best coverage, you're dumb. That is $1,200 a year for cable. Like, would you buy would you actually spend $1,200 to go once a month? Or would you, yeah, no, once a year to go to an NFL game? That's a flipping lot. And I don't care, Swifties, Taylor Swift, if your average ticket is $1,200, that just means you have inflated tickets to drive up the average cost. People cannot afford that. Country music, stars, like, well, actually, I can't even think of any country music stars that I feel like kind of like rake people over the coals. But I'm just gonna actually pick on a few that are coming to mind. So Morgan Wallen, I don't think that you rake people over the coals, but my son loves you and he loves you. I mean, he sings your songs when he's in the shower, when he's at home and stuff. And so yeah, again, I think that you are definitely Taylor Swift star in the making kinds of things. I wish you would partner with one of the girls in country music and bring her up with you, by the way, because cream of the crop. Yeah, one of the saddest things that I thought in country music was when both Blake and Miranda were like on top, and then Miranda started singing about such hostile things like ripping apart somebody's car and just being so infuriated. And then, like, then the drama unfolds, and then her and Blake are getting in a divorce, and then in swoops Blondie, and so the pop music chick, and blah blah blah. And so I absolutely love duh Miranda's work until it got super hostile, like Criminal. There's a really good song out that I hate to say this, but I relate to it. But I think it, and really, Miranda, just so you know, this is for you, sweetheart. This is actually directly to you, Miranda Lambert, but also like whoever is the country music star. I heard this song on the radio today. It's such a good song. Some of you, I'm just going to describe it. I'm not very good at remembering lyrics. I'm not a good rote memory person, but like, or pop music or, names. It takes me a very long time to kind of get to know names, quotes, people, etc. However, there's a country music song that I'm watching a Netflix in the background, just in case you're interested why I'm a little bit distracted, because I am watching a musical. And it's a Christian musical. It's very good, but I am not actually 100% paying attention to it. I'm just kind of actually living it. Kind of play in the background. There's a competition. It's like a camp. It's not a band camp, but it's like a summer camp kind of musical. It's very cute. But anyways, long and short of it, this song is about a woman who experienced domestic violence. The worst kind of domestic violence is the invisible domestic violence. So if you've ever been controlled and or like intimidated and or, if you will, wrecked by a controlling partner, like my son has had multiple girlfriends, and he cannot stand a chance against, like, especially girls who commit domestic violence. It's bad. Like, but many times the guys have to take the blame and or shoulder and the brunt of it, because that's just the way society is. But my son had a girlfriend who not only encouraged him to do illegal things, before he was the age of 18. So he was in juvie trouble. And then the girls that he picked actually got worse and worse. And when I say got worse and worse, I don't mean that they're bad people, but like yeah, I mean, his judgment got worse and worse. And so he was going out with ladies, little young ladies who were troubled and had troubles. And so, um, yeah, he always picked very pretty girls, but they were troubled. And so, not only did they misguide him, sometimes emotionally, sometimes physically, they were abusive. And so when I say that, there was so much manipulation and nonsense that went on. Like one gal, there was some sort of terrible argument, fight, whatever, it doesn't matter. And somehow the cat was like in the middle of the situation, and there were like, I wasn't there, but there was like comments about throwing the cat or like abusing the cat, or my son lived with my nephew, and he's very abusive and has been actually served time for legit, and he is, by the way, a domestic violence perpetrator. Anyway, I'm not sure that my son is a perpetrator, but he has had domestic violence accusations against him. And because he's a male, um, he doesn't get to, I don't know, I don't think it's a masculine thing, but like he really doesn't stand a chance in the court of law because he's a guy if he picks a girl that's aggressive. And I have a real concern and a problem with aggressive and violent, especially violent women, but men and women. And yes, I'm talking to you, Miranda, still, but Blake Shelton and, that whole thing. I will bring this full circle. So just stay with me. But there is a country music song, and it's the sentiment is like right on target. And so when I describe, I'm not going to be able to give you the lyrics, but when I describe because one of the best things about country music is obviously the storylines, right? Like typically those songs have a beginning, middle, and end. And they're not like wazoo, make no sense. I don't know any country music songs that seem like Bizarro Monday and What is the Point? I'm searching in my head. Even like way back in the day, my first song that I ever sang, from the microphone when I was a little girl was like, these boots are made for walking and that's what they'll do. And one of these days, boots are going to walk over you. Like, yeah, in my mind, I'm racking my brain. I can think of rap songs. I can think of, I don't know, excuse me, even like The Cure. I can think of some songs that are, or like rap or like progressive that are like dark and like my kids would call like progressive emu, like, is it emo? Emo, like gothic or whatever emo. Well, anyway, that's considered emotional, but like it's really like heavy and dark. Progressive, like these are terms and terminology. Well, anyway, in country music, there's a song currently right now. When I say current, I just mean it's been, I don't know what year it was been released, but it was played on the country music station today. And so it's the song about a woman who is broken. She's found, he pulls up in the pickup truck, right? And he sees her on the side of the road. She clearly has been beaten down by life, but domestically abused, the domestic violence, whether it sounds like in the song, like she was beat to a pulp, actually. Okay. Like maybe who knows, maybe she had bruises all over herself. Right. Maybe but like the driver of the vehicle knew that this man broke her and he basically sends her to hell. And it says something like, get in the truck. How's it go? Well, anyway, the sentiment of it is like, he sends the perpetrator to hell. Like he actually pulls up into, I think the story scene for me in my head, I've never seen the music video, but to me, it's like he pulls up into a white trash house or a white trash trailer park. Okay. And this man is, beyond cocky, like whatever. And he goes into this trailer. Maybe the guy is white, maybe he's not, but like he's drunk and or out of his mind, arrogant, mean, sob. And so the victim is the woman, the perpetrator is the guy that owns the trailer, and then the hero in the song is the the guy that tells her to get in the truck. And then her resounding chorus is about a judge who, I think the judge, no, I can't remember how it goes, but I think that the guy ends up going to jail. And I definitely know the chorus says something about like angels don't do what he did. Okay, allow me to take one moment and say, yes, they do. There's an old show that's called Touched by an Angel. Even if you watch like Little House on the Prairie, there are times when people that are maybe pastors and or righteous, and there are times that they, like, I can remember this Little House on the Prairie like episode when it wasn't Doc, but it was like the preacher. He swore on this book, and he swore it wasn't on the Holy Bible, but he pretended like he impersonated, like the book made it look like he swore on the Bible and stuff, which tricky, 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 tricky. But the point is in this country music song, this man shoots this guy dead, and then he's sentenced to jail. And honestly, it's like he serves the jail sentence with willingly, I think, in the song. But there are some parts of the song lyrics wise that talks about the judge and blah 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 blah. I don't know. Um there are times that death seems appropriate to me. And so I was a vegetarian for 10 whole years. I actually have a really hard time with offenses against children and women, but even men. And so if somebody is a repeat offender, like, for example, I'm gonna try to be very careful on this one because I don't want, but like yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm not really connected to her. I know a woman who slapped her mother-in-law across the face. She is an alcoholic and bipolar disorder, and she is, ugh, like the woman actually is very difficult for me to be in the presence of. Okay. Although she was domestically, physically beat up by her husband, she engaged in absolute fights. Like she was aggressive. Her husband had similar issues to her, not alcoholism, but drug addiction. And so his temper and her, like they physically fought. They fought. So he was many times under the influence of drugs. Many times she was under the influence of alcohol. Both of them had mental illness. And two children, I will not say if they were both, the same gender or not, but they severely suffered because of it, like severely. Like I think they were confused about, again, I have firsthand knowledge, but I don't want to like But I think that these 2 young children were confused about everything in life, like everything. Ugh, and one, like, for all intents and purposes, like, lived with the family member who wasn't a good pick. Thank you very much, Children's Services. And the other ended up in a foster home, and I hope that was a better pick than the immediate family. Here's why I'm pausing is because I feel like this would be very controversial if this and I'm live, but um I know somebody who basically was like so angry at this, one of the perpetrators in this story, and basically was like, that person is dead to me. What a horrible statement. Actually, I think it's abomination. I hate that. Um, but from a mental health and from a mental health standpoint, I really think some counselors would say, that's somewhat healthy. Like, it's okay to break up with your family, right? If there's like a family association, like, it's okay to break up with your family. The thing is we don't get to pick our family, uh, but domestic violence, drugs, alcohol, and addiction can cause people to have to create a different family. And so when I say that, I mean, like, well, I don't mind. I'll just talk about myself. So I don't mind at all sharing this. But so for example, right before my husband died, like within the year before he died, he disclosed to me that he had multiple addiction issues. Nordstrom Rack actually is knocking on my door. They want me to go shopping, but I really don't like the selection they have at all. And I honestly don't even know how much money is on the cards that I have. I can't seem to identify it, but I am so disappointed at you in Nordstrom Rack. Stop knocking on my door. I've looked on your website. I've shopped. There's nothing impressive on there. So, whatever. Okay, sorry. Um, yeah, back to my thought. So from the standpoint of this, and a psychologist actually, um was the one who told my husband, like, basically he had addiction issues, which I knew he had control issues, self-control, like, for example, spending. But because it went untreated for so many years, and because his mother enabled him and his brother and his father to not be responsible for their problems, and henceforth enable, I'm being very careful. I do not want to upset anybody, like my children, as I tell this story. So I guess I just have to figure out if I'm going to go out on a limb, because we spoke very openly about the family issues that we observed on my husband's side of the family in our home. So much though, so that I think it was alarming for I do think it was alarming sometimes, like the level of political savvy and the mental health ness that my kids, like, I remember my daughter made this very cute poster of me, and in poster she was like, in our house my mom's favorite drink is wine and my dad's favorite drink is beer, and I was so embarrassed. And the teacher, I don't think the teacher judged me. I don't think the teacher, like our elementary teacher team, from my son Kale's age until my son Logan's age, I mean, legendary. Like, I can think of only one that didn't belong in this Highland elementary school. That I was like literally, to the Sesame Street degree of like one of these things doesn't belong here. Like Wendy Gorman absolutely did not belong there. She was married to the superintendent, so she did probably politically get like such a good. She ended up getting a divorce from him and stuff, but she was nuts. She was crazy. She was bad. She was bad with boys, and so there were 7 boys in my son's first grade class. 7, count them, 7. Out of all 7 of us mothers, she made 6 of them cry. Me, she infuriated me to the extent that I had to exercise extreme and, let's just say, extreme and unreasonable amounts of self-control not to go to Mr. Wiltsey and say, "Can you please do something about her?" So, although like my son Kale was memorizing like a play. He was in church and was supposed to be memorizing scripture, but he had a very hard time. And so I just say, well, just hide the meaning in your heart. Okay. She was counteractive, counterproductive, absolutely terribly negative to my son in that. And she told me that Kale, my son, was the kind of kid that was, and she said she's seen it hundreds of times, that he was going to end up a druggie and a rebel. And let me please just gently say, my son did struggle and he dropped out of high school and he was definitely rebelling, but we were contending with an adult child. My husband was an adult child of an alcoholic, a brother of a drug addict, and we were contending with enormous and tremendous amounts of mental illness in, his very small family, very small. There's him and his brother. Um, but the impact and the trickle effect was bad because, his brother had a wife, then, he divorced her, then he had a girlfriend, there was a kid involved, then he had 2 kids himself, and then like, and then there was like this family effect on the Petrus side, which is, Aunt Cece, Uncle Pete. Aunt Cece, she, very judgmental and very, very, very hostile and very, very mean when it comes to like once she makes up her mind, she absolutely won't change it. And so, deeply like, grudgery and unfair in her judgments. And then, Uncle Pete, he was actually at Woodward. I think he was at Woodward, and he's teacher and a good teacher, I think. But and then Marianne, so Pete and Marianne, brother and sister, and then like very large family, so the Petritz family, and there was mental illness, drug and alcohol issues, and dare I say, when you have a very large family, it's so easy for that sort of thing. It's not a creep thing. It's just I think it's prevalent in today's society so much. And then, but maybe it is a creep thing, but maybe it creeps in. The more kids you have, the higher probability somebody's going to have some sort of mental illness or problem. I don't know. Unscathed is probably, anyway, a thing. Like John's Aunt Karen and Aunt Ellen were very judgmental. So Aunt Cece, very judgmental. Anyway, like these women have opinions about me and my family. And so John's godmother, who lives out in Arizona, um, she, said, or like, actually kind of blame me because, like I didn't call her and ask for help when my husband was having issues and or problems. So, and then the other aunt that was local in town, whose husband died by suicide, she was judgmental too, and but she blamed all of the it's just I mean if you know, in order to make sense I think of things, but she blamed all of the problems of that family unit, meaning my husband's immediate family, on alcohol and drugs actually, but she didn't say drugs, but she's a pharmacist. So you know, if those two ladies were more open-minded and gentle, I think I would be able to receive their opinions a little bit easier. Mm. But they don't sit perfectly with me, so whatever. Um, but the long and short of it is, like, I am considered, like, dead to my husband's family, and my son and daughter have heard my they've seen Aunt Cece be so cruel and mean and basically, kill me with her meanness. They've seen Uncle Pete stop engaging with me. Mary Ann acted like I was dead, which that's my mother-in-law. My friend and my sister and I were praying in my living room, and my friend is a very strong Christian lady. She's a BSF leader, and if you don't know what that is, just Google it. But so, we were praying, and she was like, "Bind it, God, bind it," because I was lamenting about the evil and the pain and the hurt that. So then we wrote. That was the day we wrote the obituary, and my son Kale and Marianne and probably the funeral director and maybe the gosh darn priest, which blew who on the Catholic Church. They took out everything having to do with his faith. They took away, Logan was preparing to speak about his father at the funeral. They took that away. They said they weren't going to allow for an open microphone in the Catholic Church. I mean, the abominations just go on and on and on. And maybe perhaps because you're so far away, it doesn't sound that bad. I mean, it was so bad. It was an abomination after abomination after abomination after abomination. I mean, I from the Catholic Church, from the Protestant Church, I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on, but like this is not a McCoy. What is that like old Southern thing? The McCoys versus, the two shooting families, like the McCoys and the whatever it is, something. There's like an old, if you're not from America and you're listening to this, there is an old American story about the McCoys and I can't remember the other one, but it's like legendary. And so in that story, like these Southern people had tremendous wedges and hate. Excuse me. I feel like there's a lot of tragedy in both sides, but I cannot, nor will I try to recount it. But what I'm saying is my family is very large. And so my mom and dad are still married. My grandmother is 100. My parents are pushing 80. And well, my dad might be 80. Grandma's 100. I can't remember when she had him. And then my mom's, so anyway, my parents are in their late 70s. They might. I think my dad actually might turn 80 this year. Um, and then, and then, my dad's parents eloped. My mom and dad eloped. And then, there was a ton of snark in our family. Like, people thought my mom was definitely like hiding a pregnancy or something, and that's why they got married. But either she had a miscarriage. I don't think she did, but she had my older brother, and his name is Joby. And they got married in January, so he was born in December. And then I was born the next December, and then my mom had a miscarriage. I don't know what month. And then my brother was born the next May, and my other brother was born the next March, and then my sister was born the next July, And then, I can't remember how many years are between Cami and Josh. I wanna say he was born I wanna say he was born in '78 and she was in '75. I could be right. I don't know, right around there. And then, of course, my sister was born in 1980. And so my mom had 7 children, really 9 because she had a miscarriage with twins. She had 9 children in 10 years. But it doesn't mean that we were high functioning as a family either because we had a lot of chaos and we didn't have here's what we didn't have. We did not have like the structure in our house was school. That was it. That was it. That was it. We didn't go to church, so we didn't have any moral we didn't even have books. Like, the grim fairy tales and stuff, they're kind of dark, but there's always a moral to the story. We didn't go to church, so there's no moral to the story. So if you're taking your kids to church once a week, at least they're getting moral stories, right? And they're given opportunities and exposure to things like Bible study, singing, stories of adversity from a patriarchal standpoint, because in the Bible really does not go into gruesome, extensive, and horrific details of women. Paul, I think, might be the epitome or depiction of a man who strongly desired perfection, but competed immensely with Peter. And then so Peter, James, and John. So those 4, like, the top bros, they're the bros of Jesus, right? The top 4. Um, and just so you know, like, just in case you didn't know this, but like the Gospels were written years and years after Jesus died and was resurrected. In any environment that I have been in, like when there's documentation needed, I try to get all documentation within 24 hours of the incident. Are you kind of getting the gist here? I mean, like, and then from a clinical standpoint, you got 24 hours, maybe 48, but like you have to try and you really should have 2 or 3 witnesses or whatever if you're going to do an investigation. Like the closer the account to the offense, let's just call crucifixion offense, right? The offense against Jesus, the more reliable the facts are. Now, before you get on some runaway train and start like throwing your fist up and barfing like how the Bible's not true because of what I just said, stop. Okay. And the reason I'm telling you to slow down is because I don't have enough religious education to tell you about the Quran, the Tao Te Ching, or any other scribe scrolls and or documents that depict a philosophy of religion. What I can tell you is that the Jewish faith, the Old Testament, unfolded and was written as it occurred. And so, for example, the rabbis had scroll. I love The Chosen. Okay. So The Chosen actually shows, and Dallas Jenkins, thank you very much, by the way. I saw something about you employing somebody that had a rainbow meaning, like the woke rainbow, on their camera, and or was, like one of your camera people might have been gay or something. And I mean, I saw absolute slash and slander, and I'm so disappointed that that was published, but it was. And so, but real Christians like me and you, we recognize and know, number one, the sentiment and or Jesus's life I think, well, I can't speak for you, but I can't speak for Protestants, but I'm going to say, like, from my own research and knowledge, the Protestant church broke away from the Catholic church because Catholic became so hooked on the wrong thing. So not only are we talking about the legalism and the ritual, and the Jewish faith is very ritualistic, but so are many other, religions, but that ritualism and that legalism is cultish. And I'm not saying that Jewish faith is cultish. Like, so please do not put words into my mouth. Please do not try and twist the meaning and or the intent of what I'm trying to explain to you. But the Jewish faith and the rabbis really were more educated than many. And so there was a concentrated effort to keep women uneducated. Here's the thing, women being around men, men being around women, we learn from each other. And so if you have a highly educated man, typically a woman would, rise to his level of comprehension, understanding, and even if she wasn't literate, if she was wise, she would offer that man tremendous support, love, and insight, right? So, um, yeah, when it comes to teasing out some certain things, when it comes to religion, what's very interesting about Christianity is, number one, Jesus is the only religious person who ever claimed and or has physical and manuscript documentation that it occurred. Okay. Going back to this, like, the documentation occurred like 30, 20, 15 years post the crucifixion. Let's go back and talk about that for a moment. I do not think there was like some weirdo wackadoodles, skadoodle um, conspiracy. The Bible is so amazing in that you can take scriptures, and everything is labeled, right? But you can take scriptures from the Old Testament, studied, let's just say you're studying Greek, Old Testament, like, so before the King James Version. So go back to the Greeks, right? The Greek version, the Greek scrolls, the back in the day. Okay. So not the English King James interpretation, because my knowledge and my research, independent of the teaching that I get, which I get a lot of teaching from the church I go to, is that many of the scripture and even entire books were left, okay, in Greece and or left behind, in order to perpetuate and, for political reasons, from a king and a masculine, like, we say masochistic standpoint. So the agenda was to oppress women, period. It just was. And so let's keep them uneducated. Um, and yeah. And so, the interesting thing, very interesting thing to me is, of all of the female women who have been in high political places for a long time, I feel like England has produced. I feel like I'm gonna go out on a limb here because this might bust on me, but just again from my history knowledge, like, England's female leaders are above and beyond hand and fist over every other female leader. So the Chinese and the Orient has had female leaders. In modern day, I'm thinking of female presidents like New Zealand. I'm thinking about, Germany has had female leadership. During the pandemic, that was so bizarre. Like they literally had a gal in and out of the office in the prime minister office, like hot fire, like flash in the pan. That was so bizarre. Um, Now, one thing about like, and of course, okay, so some people will say Queen Elizabeth was just a figurehead, right? Can I please tell you, I don't care if it was Princess Diana. I really don't care if it's the princesses, right? Like the royals. In England, it is a small country. Okay. The United Kingdom, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, the United Kingdom. It's not, I mean, I studied the conflict in Ireland. Dr. Seamus Metris, who had an ego problem, beg your pardon, but yeah, he just was so stuck on the NRA and the Irish and he hated Catholics. He was like so NRA, like he just had a hostile like vein to him. But yeah, and so if you get too stuck in the groove, you lose me. Like lose me. I mean, I took yeah. And I spoke my mind in my I don't know, my final paper, and he gave me a C minus because he didn't like the political stand and the observations that I made about his instruction. But long and short of it is, I don't think, I feel like I'm trying to think in my head, does South America have female leadership that I'm well aware of? No. Does Africa have female leadership that I am well aware of? I'm searching. I don't think so. Does Europe? Yes. Does Japan? No. Does Australia? I don't know. I don't think so, but I do know New Zealand. Here's the thing about England and New Zealand, and I say this with great regard and respect. The United States of America is huge, and I feel like the New Zealand presidents might be in a position similar to one of our governors. So, yeah. So just compare, try to go apples to apples. So if you look at, you know, geography. So let's just say compare it to Texas or compare it to like I'm just thinking about like the Vermont or like what so compare it to United States of America with similar population, and if you can go ahead and compare it to land. But I think I don't know, I'm just thinking about the global stage. It seems like GDP, gross domestic product. I don't know. I guess I have to see a heat map about the gross domestic product globally in order to really develop this argument. But I think you understand my point. It's very important to create an apples to apples situation. Let me go back one more step. So going back to this country music song with this gentleman who really was a gentleman, touched by an angel kind of thing. And, I don't know nor do I know that Miranda's songs are based on truth, fact, and circumstances. Um, George Floyd is not the 13th apostle, right? Like, so this social justice initiative, that is the most laughable situation. And it's actually insulting. So I made a remark earlier, either in this video or in another one, about African Americans, Black people not caring about Asian people. And I meant it. I meant it because the people in that segment that like get on that radical, like Obama, I'm just going to actually use presidents, Biden, Democratic bandwagon, Clinton. I'm just thinking about all the Democratic presidents we've had. I mean, it's nauseating. And so those people are leveraged and influenced by hate and drama as opposed to absolute fact finding. The hardest dang thing about fact finding in today's age, and even actually long time ago, one thing about America is we have a free press, but if you go back into history, you know, fact finding newspaper reporters that were corrupt, like the National Enquirer, or I'm gonna say gossip, loose. I cannot stand shitty news. I can't stand shitty facts. I know I'm cursing, but I am, and I'm not a pastor, right? Like, just, for the record. But when it comes to integrity, whether it's the integrity of the film, that, the cinematic or whatever, the pixels, or what I'm saying, you know, I know sound clips can make me look like an absolute fool. Henceforth, Sarah, the Republican, right? Who is notorious in my mom's head, for, ding dong, like saying like she could see Russia from Alaska. That's her big quote. So Sarah Palin, was ill equipped, she said, to operate and be a Republican because she was a dingbat or whatever. I cannot get on that train. I cannot get on that bandwagon, and I cannot and will not put my ear to the proverbial like rail and listen for that choo-choo train to start coming down the tracks. Okay. So I'm trying to use idioms and examples of old time America. So if you have your ear to the rails, or you have boots on the ground, that's a troopy kind of thing, right? Like, we have boots on the ground. We have actual people marching. There's a war. Okay. That is a lot different. Information from boots on the ground is so, and proximity time. So boots on the ground, like I'm in Outer Banks. I'm not, but like, for example, I know a story where CNN reported false news from the Outer Banks. In other words, somebody was there, they were broadcasting, I think it was like after one of the hurricanes and stuff, and they were on a beach, and the sign for that beach was like right near these people. So they were like, oh my gosh, let's get down there since they're broadcasting live. And they ran out of their house or whatever, went down to the beach, and nobody was there. So CNN was actually saying live, and they were lying. Okay. To me, like, CNN should have been unplugged. Like, that is a major offense from a conduct standpoint. I mean, that rises to the level of, wow, like we had terrorists and or reports from a family member with concerns about somebody who's going to be shooting and is a family member is concerned about the volatility and dangerousness of their son or grandson, there is a shooting story, one of our school shooting stories, where that level of intelligence was provided to authorities, okay? There we have to be wiser and smarter, and I'm talking from, you know, a fact-checking standpoint, but here's the other thing. In England, in particularly in China and in Japan, you know, I mean, I think people in America are concerned about people around the globe. I also think people around the globe think Americans are arrogant and selfish, whatever, whatever. I also know people around the globe do tune into American news. And sometimes, particularly like my cousins in Scotland were so excited because the Obamas were in Glasgow and they were in Edinburgh. And I was like, and they were like, let's go down and see your president. And I was like, absolutely not. I have no desire. Like, as far as I was concerned, President Obama and his wife, they were jacking up my job. Um, I do appreciate that Mrs. Obama was concerned about the children and, was it obesity? I feel like, is she No Child Left Behind? I can't remember. I can't remember. I do appreciate it when first ladies have an initiative that genuinely does address concerns. I don't appreciate it when it comes to Obama, for example. Like all President Obama did when he introduced affordable health care is he shoved a layer of administration into my already administratively heavy HR job. And I didn't get any more compensation for that. And it took a lot more out of my day. It did not increase my FTE people. It actually added stress and absolute insanity, impossibility to the job that I was in. Okay. So, yeah, I've got some, I don't know, poignant and very vivid experiences while like all of the living presidents were in office. And it absolutely, like, and decisions made during their administration, that affects me. Now, that being said, the pandemic hit when President Trump was in office. That being said, President Trump did not, I mean, I do believe the first stimulus money was released and signed by Donald Trump, if I'm not mistaken. I would need an attorney or somebody in the current government. I probably could Google it actually, but what Joe Biden's administration and the Fed, which is coinciding in his presidential administration, has done is nothing short of he should be fired. It's not I'm not saying he should be impeached. I'm just saying, like, don't vote him back in to office because he's been so irresponsible with money, reckless. He's been a terrible example. Now, President Trump's as soon as Joe Biden got in office, he appealed and pulled back a ton of President Trump's policies without being able to quote by number, by bill, what have you. The tariffs against China comes immediately to my mind. It's like President Trump got in the office, stood up against the devil, and then Americans put Joe Biden in office, the Democrats, and Joe Biden immediately made a deal with the devil again. And I'm not calling China the devil. I have a sweet, dear, lovely friend who's from China. I have a sweet, dear, lovely Iranian friend, Egyptian friends. I have friends around the globe. I know people from Saudi Arabia. I mean, I have a friend who lived in Saudi Arabia for 10 years, although she was not native. And she was not Muslim. But I'm just saying, yeah, I mean, again, going back to country music, going back to justice, going back to fact finding, when it comes to our entertainment, there's some good sentiment to I know. I don't even want to say that out loud, but like really, I like that country music song because it seemed like justice. And the guy still had to, serve in jail, whether or not it's based on a true story or not. He was willing to, according to the song, pay the price. And whether that is considered noble or not, if I were the sitting judge on that bench, I feel like I would take the facts and circumstances into account. And if the domestic violence was to the level of which this song makes me believe it was, man or woman, yeah, I feel like I, as a judge, would do right by the victim by not only releasing and pardoning the murderer, but also somehow helping that woman get back on her feet. I think that would be social justice. Okay, I'm going to go. So, God bless. It's been an hour. Mwah. Thank you for sticking to the end. That's where I'm landing. That's where I'm landing my plane, right? So, thank you, and thank you very much. And so, please tune into Thor Wellness Group again. Um, ThorWellnessGroup.com is my website. I'm trying to think. I don't know how to do this. My YouTube is Jamie. I think it's Jamie at ThorWellnessGroup.com. I don't know. I need my friend Jeff to coach me on that. Anyway, I'm in the eastern United States in Ohio. We got incredible amounts of snow. We're having a wintry winter, which they've actually said that we were going to have a wintry winter. When I say they, I'm pretty sure like the information came from the Farmer's Almanac. I could be wrong, but yeah, I knew, or somehow, in some way, I knew that this winter was expected to have, like blustery, heavy, wintry, weather for this region. And I'm quite accustomed to very ugly winters, right? Because I lived in Minnesota and like, I don't know how many days, but I mean, some winters we had days and days and days and stretches of, below zero, meaning below 32 degrees, but also below 0 Celsius, which is, below zero wind chills, like negative. That would be an interesting statistic. Well, anyways, thank you for tuning in. God bless. Be good. And yeah, remark thoughtfully if you want. I really don't want to engage with like inciting unkind remarks and or comments. So if you want to be mean and harsh, I might just totally ignore you. But if you want to ask a question, a thoughtful one, and or want to press into anything that, you don't understand based on what I was thinking about, I will be checking the comments and maybe taking a look I sort of trust that fair, reasonable, and good-minded people, probably Christians, I'm a Christian, might come in and offer clarification. There's a very good chance that, I might have spoken about something you just don't fully understand. So if that's the case, by the way, please keep coming back. You're more than welcome. And my intention of this group, Thor Wellness Group, is to promote wellness. And so, really, what that means is kind of salt of the earth, common sense, holistic wellness. And I'm not sure that I'll ever niche up more than that, but I can definitely, obviously, hang on even on a monologue, um, and offer my thoughts to you. So thank you very much. God bless you, and come back and see me. And yeah, would you also? I'm just going to encourage you to do one more thing. My son Logan is a remarkable young man, and I can remember when he's in high school, one of his teachers asked him to, document his random acts of kindness. I think it might have been left by the desk or something. And so I think he documented it and then left it out, didn't turn it into the teacher or whatever. In the Christian faith, we say, don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. And that just simply means like, don't be haughty. Don't be kind to get kindness. Okay. So I'm going to actually urge you and encourage you to do something like extremely generous. I don't care what it is. Super kind. Like, even I've been known to write out proverbs, not cite it as a proverb, and put it in people's mailboxes. And sometimes people are like, oh, I got the nicest quote. But it was maybe a very pointed message or a very pointed quote. So that's a little bit humorous. But, let me encourage you to encourage others, okay? And don't ever grow weary and or tired of being kind, good. I have a friend who, she's quite a bit older than I am, and she says, the past is concrete, right? You can't change it. Present is clay. So it's somewhat moldable, right? You have some sort of influence in how you respond, how you think, how you frame things, what you do, how you react. And then the future, and then my addendum to it is, and the future is bright. So keep your chin up and keep light as, and brightness and hope as, yeah, keep it close to your heart. My husband's suicide rocked me and shattered me in places that I can't even articulate inside my heart and soul. It hurt my kids so badly that I just pray for complete and total healing, because I thought all the kids were pretty good, resilient, and healthy. But my mama's heart and the fear that raked and riddled me through those proverbial coals, and I mean like white, hot, proverbial fire coals. That's what I mean. Yeah. So be kind to people. I actually had a student, or I meet people all the time. I met a man on the phone one time whose daughter had been murdered. And when he told me like the 7 years of trouble that he had, lost his wife, she blamed him. Her grief was actually just, they split. I have no way of fact checking that guy, but like, I do believe this. I had a child in one of the schools recently told me his dad died by suicide. We counted the years back. It was somewhere between 7, 8, or 9. And this little boy is still struggling. And so his mom also is struggling. She, I think, is a single mother, but I don't know if I have all the details concise on that. But it's tough. And I do not only do I absolutely despise the publication and, qualification of suicide being an epidemic, the absolute craziness of us saying that it's preventable. And yet the statistics go up and up and up. We've got to do something. So if we do indeed believe it is preventable, what is the prevention? And the only letter that I can land on is a W, and it's holistic wellness. So with that, now I'll end. Have a good day, and thank you for listening, and thank you for tuning in. This one is a long one. It's an hour and 11 minutes. Thanks. Bye.